Hello and welcome back to another video. Today here again on Forza Horizon 5 to take you through some of the updated and new props that have been added to Event Lab since the launch of the game. So some of these have been in here for a while and, well, some of them are a lot newer than others, but a lot of them have been added since I last had a play around with Event Lab. So if we go into Blueprint Builder, let's have a look at some of these. But yeah, basically I haven't used this for a while because one route that I was working on, for some reason, lost all its checkpoints, so the game got confused because when I loaded it up there were no checkpoints and it would crash the game basically. So I gave up on Event Lab for a while, but I've recently come back and started playing about with it again because I noticed there were a few more props in here. So anyway, the best ones are probably in this first ramps and platforms section, where you can see here there's some concrete platforms, because previously we had a bit of a problem where the only surfaces were these like metally ones, which were quite, well, they're kind of uneven as you can see, even if you do manage to line them up properly. But here we have concrete, which isn't too bad. We also have dirt. These are available in sort of corner shapes and straights, but we also have dirt, and we also have asphalt, which is kind of useful. I know they're sort of sitting above the ground here, so for example, if you wanted to cover this bit up, you'd have to sort of put it here and then bring it down slightly. So it's still not perfect, things don't snap together, which means making a nice smooth surface out of these is still incredibly difficult. But you get the idea that there's quite a lot of stuff that's been added. But yeah, trying to make a smooth surface takes forever. That's just lining two bits up. You can imagine even just trying to cover up this bit of dirt takes forever, basically. So those are sort of the most useful props we have in here. We do also have in signs and flags a few more things, but most interestingly, these sort of painted arrows. So you can place these on the ground anywhere and it looks like it's, well, painted on the tarmac. And you can also put these up on your asphalt. So you can put some asphalt surface down and then, if you so wish, paint arrows on it, which is quite useful. They're not really useful for gameplay, but for making it look nice, they're very, very cool. We do also have, if we come along to the festival section, these towers, which you previously only had the sort of generic one, we've now got for the different race disciplines. So we've got Apex, Wilds, Baja and Rush, which is very good to see. Walls and fences is, well, brilliant now, because not only have they got a wall of tyre stacks, so you don't have to individually place them, because you used to just have to place, well, these, which obviously takes forever. You can now place 5 at a time, which is very cool to see. And there's a whole load of concrete things like pillars and walls, so you could build some really cool structures here. Because you've got these sort of straight walls, and you've got corner walls, so you can see already you can quite quickly build a sort of structure or building or something, which is very cool to see. And if you don't want it plain concrete, there's also a plastered version in, well, all sorts of colours, which is cool to see as well. You can make a sort of multicoloured wall or building if you wanted to, but you can kind of see the options that that gives you. There's quite a lot you can do. If we go back in here again and along to gameplay, there's also many new things in here, but I generally don't use this tab all that much, because I don't really want to place these sort of things on my tracks. Nothing new in vehicles since I last had a play around on here. Industrial has many more containers, sort of street scene style, with the lights on them, which is kind of cool. I mean, showing you this in daylight, it's not brilliant. You'd have to build something and then come back at night to sort of see those, but you get the idea. Where these sort of light strips are will light up pink or blue depending on which you choose, which is good to see. because those were kind of already in here over at Street Scene, so to be able to use them in Events Lab's well, good. Basically all the props that are out there in the world of Mexico should be available for us to use in here. Urban hasn't had anything that I've noticed added, really. Rural is also pretty much as it was. So is natural. You've still got your T-Rex. I don't think anything was added to the end of it. Certainly haven't noticed. And then last and also probably least in this case is the decoration tab, which, well, is entirely pointless because it's basically full of seasonal stuff that gets added as soon as it's no longer relevant. So, for example, the Christmas stuff was added in New Year after Christmas season had finished, so it'll be useful next year, but yeah, they kind of add things as soon as it's no longer relevant. But those are kind of all of the new props we've got. Like I say, particularly these new ground surfaces are going to be really useful for building, because you can build track anywhere basically. It'll take forever because things don't snap, but those are definitely the most useful. The walls are probably the second most useful if you're wanting to build structures, and yeah, there's a few more things that make it easier, like the tyres pre-put together, and some other cool visual props like containers with lights and arrows painted on the floor, for example. So, I did, before shooting this video, go in and, well, spend quite a long time building a blueprint. This is basically, well, the idea I originally had before, and the blueprint that I was trying to make when I gave up on Events Lab because the checkpoint just vanished and it broke. So I've kind of made this, and one of the ideas I really wanted to put into one of these things was the idea of building a pit lane. So I've kind of now done that, and with these concrete walls, plastered concrete walls that I've used for this, it is a lot easier to build something like this, to build some little pit garages. And yeah, it works well here on the Festival drag strip because you've kind of got these lines already, so you can sort of imagine these are pit boxes and this bit out here is the pit lane. But yeah, that is kind of a cool thing that I've been trying to do for a while, but like I said, the last blueprint I tried to do that with broke, basically. And you've got the painted arrow on the floor, which I showed you, one of the new props that's available. We've got the towers in the different colours. So yeah, trying to kind of make use of a lot of the new props I'd found. That's an example of an unpainted concrete wall, if you want to see what those look like. And these tyre walls are all done with the 5 long object we now have, the 5 tyre stack long object, which is very useful. It means making these was quite a lot easier than it looks, because you can imagine placing individual tyres, particularly with objects not snapping together properly, is very irritating in this game. One problem I've still come across here is that I reach prop limit very quickly. I am playing this on the original Xbox One S, so I am aware on PC there's a higher prop limit, which potentially I'll be making use of at some point soon. But yeah, for here I've reached prop limit, making a track this sort of length. So you see where it comes back in here? The original idea was that it was going to go out onto the circuit where the sort of in-game Mexico circuit is, but that isn't practical. Yes, I could make it with less props, but I'd like it to feel like a proper racetrack, so... Anyway, that is a sort of quick showing you around of the circuit, so now let's try a slightly higher speed lap to give you, well, a couple of laps to give you an idea of what it would be like racing. So yeah, it would have been nice if I could put more wall in some places actually, because they sort of suddenly appear in front of you. You have to try not to hit them. There is a bit of a problem here where you get air on the ramp there, because it is slightly difficult to make this nice and smooth. I couldn't make it entirely flat, I needed to come up off the ground a bit, otherwise it sunk through the ground in places and had plants growing through it and stuff. So yeah, it's still not ideal, but the fact they're adding props and stuff is so cool, and it's brought me back to using this feature that I'd kind of given up on, because, well, one blueprint broke that I'd spent many hours building, so yeah. Finally felt like coming back and giving it another go, but yeah. Good to see some new props, and, well, hopefully you guys like this circuit. It is shared, so I'll put the name of the track and share code up at the end of the video. if you want to go and have a go. But yeah, not a bad first little track with the new props. Kind of, well, really wanting to make use of the pit lane idea I had, but also show you some of the new props that have been added if maybe, like me, you've left Event Lab for a while for whatever reason. But anyway, let's finish this final lap in the McLaren, which is pretty nice to drive around here actually. I did a test drive of the circuit in a 765 LT, which is maybe a little bit fast for this. This is just handles slightly nicer, but it is very much a high-speed circuit, which is why I've named it the Temple of Speed, which is definitely an original name for a racing track. Anyway, there we go. That's 3 laps of the circuit I quickly made with the new props. So there we go. Hopefully you did enjoy a slightly different style of video, taking you through some of the changes and improvements that have been made to Events Lab since the launch of Forza Horizon 5 all those months ago. It is good to see that they are still adding props and making improvements. So the most useful props there obviously being the new surfaces, the asphalt, and the gravel, and the dirt, and the concrete, those kind of things. The walls also useful if you're making structures, but really surfaces on the ground are the most useful. And then there's some other cool visual things, like all of the different coloured towers, the kind of street scene style containers, the painted arrows, all good things to see, but not as fundamentally useful as the other bits. The 2 kind of main things we wanted them to change were, well, being able to save, which they did implement, so that was probably the biggest improvement they've made over the last few months. Although, like I said, mine glitched out and didn't work at one point anyway, which put me off completely. But that was one of the things we wanted, and the other thing people seem to be asking for is to snap props together, which surely can't be beyond them. Surely that must be in there for the developer tools, because I can't imagine they're building all the circuits with the fiddly tools we've got. So that is kind of the other fundamental tool that we need, rather than prop, I guess. But yeah, it's good to see all these new props, and I've really enjoyed coming back in and having a play around with them. So I will potentially try and build some more circuits again, and hope that they don't break checkpoints and glitch out. I kind of, with this one, I redrew the route and replaced the checkpoints every time I edited it, so maybe that helped. I think leaving them, they sometimes get a bit unhappy. But anyway, hopefully you guys did enjoy a slightly different video, taking a look at some of the improvements and new props in Event Lab, and maybe if you haven't tried it out for a while, if you found it a bit difficult to use before, maybe you want to go back in and have a go now that it's kind of been updated a few times and stuff has been added, although it is still quite fiddly placing things. But anyway, there we go. That is going to do it for a look at some of the improvements and new props in Event Lab here in Forza Horizon 5, and that's going to be all for today's video. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with the next video very soon.